This talk is about invasive tench in Lake Ontario. This was to be given by Colin Lake, but I'm doing that today. It was put together by Colin and Alistair. So just a little bit of a summary, just so we can orient ourselves before we move through the presentation. There's a lot of information I'm going to be throwing at you. 11 large tench have been collected in Lake St. Francis since 2016. One large tench, as I mentioned this morning, was collected in the Bay of Quinte in 2018. And of note, this is the first observation within the Great Lakes. We do not know where these fish came from or how they got into Ontario waters. All fish are likely mature, but we don't have an evidence of an established population as yet. Surveillance and communication efforts will continue, and I'll talk a bit about what those efforts look like. And we've already had a fact sheet put out, and it's available on invasivespecies.com/tench, so I encourage you to check that out. So the first observation of tench upstream of Moses Saunders Dam. So this was detected on September 27th, 2018, and it was brought to MNRF by a local commercial fisher. So it was detected in this area up here. So this is the upper Bay of Quinte around Belleville, if you're familiar with the geography. Trent River's over here. So it was 47 centimeters in total length, 1.4 kilograms in weight. eDNA sampling was initiated to evaluate the distribution and evaluate the technique. So at the point of capture at Belleville, eDNA sample was collected and it was a positive, quote, hit. The fishers brought the tench to us alive, so we held it in an aquarium in our office as a bit of a control, and obviously it got a hit, which is great to validate our methodologies. Our crew went back out October 3rd and sampled a variety of locations denoted by the yellow arrows here. Sorry, they're a little blurry for you guys. But you can see the numbers here. So this is the number of samples taken in that area, and none of those had a detection at the time. So we even went back to that same spot in Belleville, we got a hit, and there was no detection. So as unfortunate as this was, we were really glad the commercial fisher brought it in, and we were also great to kind of activate ourselves to get out there and test this methodology for detection. So just a bit of context, the tench was introduced into the Richelieu River in 1991 and established at that time. So that's right here, and it's presumed that it was from a fish pond. And since then it has been spreading into connecting waterways. So here the figure on the right shows the commercial fish captures in Lac St. Pierre, which is right here. So we can see 2006, 7, 8, there were no detections, and then we see this increasing trend from 2009 to 2014. And this data is from the government of Quebec. So we hadn't seen a tench before in our office, so we thought it was worthwhile to kind of just give a background on what it looks like if you're not familiar. Tench are dark in color, olive to pale golden, tanned with a white bronze belly and reddish golden eyes. They have fine scales that are dark and rounded. They have no spines, and the scales are very small and embedded into thick skin. We actually collected some scales to do some age sampling on, and I've never seen a scale like it, so they're quite interesting. They can get up to 85 centimeters and 7.5 kilograms. They prefer stagnant waters, abundant vegetation, muddy substrate ponds, lakes, and slow-moving river areas, and they're highly tolerant to low oxygen levels. They're always almost on the bottom water, and they stir up mud and feed on insects, larvae, crustacean, mollusks, worms, and plant debris. They have a single, in Europe, it's a prize sport fishery and popular food in some countries. So if you do Google tench, you'll see a lot of sport anglers with them. They have a single barbell on each of the corner of their mouths. They have small scales and a very distinct lateral line, and a deep, short caudal peduncle, very robust. So to date, a wild population of tench is not known to occur in any Ontario waters. A population of tench was found in isolation and a farm pond near Orangeville, Ontario in 2014. However, this population was eradicated through actions taken by OMNRF and the landowner, and in fall of 2014 and spring in 2015. Monitor activities in the pond and adjacent streams have continued into 2016 to ensure that the project was successful and there were no detections. In Canada, the fish is only found in the British Columbia and the Richelieu River and St. Lawrence River in Quebec. It's well established in the United States, particularly in the Mississippi River watershed. The population in Quebec is believed to be a result of an illegal fish stocking event in the mid-1980s, whereby the fish escaped into the Richelieu River and has expanded into the St. Lawrence River. Some potential impacts of tench. They're a competitor with native minnows, bullhead suckers for food. By consuming a large quantity of aquatic snails which feed on algae, tench may contribute to nuisance algal blooms. They're known to increase turbidity through their foraging activities, similar to carp when populations are high. They're known to have thought to be a vector for transmission of diverse assemblage of parasites and diseases. Okay, so some biological information of the species that we've caught in Lake St. Francis since 2016, 17, and 18. I should say the commercial fishers have caught. We can see here the total length, some in the 390, over 450 length range. Weights of fish up almost 14,000 grams. And we have difference between males and females. And we can tell the difference in males and females by the size of their second ray on their pelvic fin. So the males have a much larger pelvic fin than the females. It's a little hard to tell if you see one in isolation, but when you get two side by side, it's quite prominent. Note that all the fish that were caught were large and likely mature. So with regards to assessment and management, this fish is used, the use of this fish as bait may be a vector for spread and for tench. Tench are not on the list of bait fish in Ontario fishing regulations. They have been caught in the commercial fishery hoop nets, as well as the assessment gill net gear and seine net gears in Quebec assessments. And tench have been eradicated from isolated ponds using chemical treatment. So as I mentioned, the Orangeville case. So the next couple slides just talk about some management actions we've taken to date. So with regards to surveillance, in 2016, boat electrofishing conducted in the vicinity of the site of capture, and no other fish were observed at that time. Annually, up to 48 gill nets are set by MNRF to assess the fish community in either Lake St. Francis or Thousand Islands, and no tench have been detected in our gear. Annually, gill nets, trawls, and trap nets, the numbers listed in brackets there, are used by MNRF to assess the fish community in the Bay of Quinte and Lake Ontario, in which we've seen no tench in those gears. Annually, the commercial fishers in eastern Lake Ontario and upper St. Lawrence River make over 15,000 hoop net lifts, including 4,000 lifts in the Lake St. Francis. In 2016 and 2018, a group conducted a small fish survey in Lake St. Francis watershed and Lake St. Lawrence River upstream of the Moses Sonder Dam. No tench were observed, so this is seining in very near shore waters where they're looking through and classifying small fish species. In 2017, MNRF developed a primer that would allow for eDNA surveillance for tench. In 2018, 11 water samples were collected in the waters of Lake St. Francis and immediately upstream of the Moses Saunders Dam and tested for tench DNA. None of the samples showed positive for detection. And water samples for eDNA analysis were collected in the Bay of Quinte. So this was on the second slide I started with. Close to the vicinity where the tench were captured. A positive detection, as I mentioned, was detected close to the point of capture immediately after the fish was brought in, but none of the other samples detected eDNA for tench. And I will note that in 2018, MNRF also conducted an angler survey on Lake St. Francis where we had lots of communication with the local anglers, and no tench were reported at that time. So some of the management actions, again, we've taken to date. So with regards to sharing information, in 2016 and 2017, we sent out information packages to local bait and harvest distributors about tench to reduce the chances of tench being used as bait. Other fisheries management agencies have been advised. Scientists who are experts on tench have been consulted and have been a very great resource. In 2017 and 18, signs about tench were developed and posted around Lake St. Francis area. And as I just mentioned, during our survey of anglers this past season, they were provided this information on tench and were asked to watch out for this species. And presentations on tench have been provided to different groups in the Cornwall area, Bay of Quinte, and commercial fishers, and we plan to do this ongoing just to increase education about this invasive species. Yeah, and with that, I'll try and take any questions.